Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for this special edition of Ohio Talks. My name is Nathan Turner, and today is somewhat bittersweet because it will be my final pod as host of this incredible podcast. Some of you may know that I got a really unique opportunity to join the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities, and I've been working there since November 7th as the Advocate Policy Specialist. In that role, I'm working on a team that is focused on integrating starting the life force principles on the Ohio Life Force Nexus, and I'm supporting people living with disabilities through information, collaboration, and support around personal advocacy, peer support, and policy and legislative advocacy. And so I think the time is right to hand over the reins of this podcast to my good friend, Marcy Strotter. She is someone I've known for quite a long time, and had the pleasure of getting to know her really well through the Ohio Tech Ambassadors and just seeing her blossom as a person. She's a former DD council member, and she just has oodles of experience with advocacy, along with serving on the Franklin County Board of Developmental Disabilities. And I'm really just looking forward to, yeah, as she would say, Marcy having an opportunity to bring her flavor to this podcast. Yeah, she's got some unique relationships with George Myers, ECA ambassadors, with Christine Brown and Nice Soccer, and everyone at DD Council. I can't wait to see what she's going to do. Before I say goodbye one final time, I think I just want an opportunity to reflect on the past the past year plus, and I just want an opportunity to thank you all for listening and an opportunity to reflect on my final moments.
So, hi everyone. I'm Wes Nelson. I'm the producer for Ohio DD Talks. Marcy can't be with us today, unfortunately, because she's got council work. We've got a team of people who are so busy and doing such great things, but we wanted to make sure to get Nate here to kind of talk and reflect on the podcast as it is so far. So, Nate, you down to answer a couple questions?
Yeah, I very much am. And I think one of the things that's so great about the unstructured nature of this episode is that, behind the scenes, we're constantly flying by the seat of our pants. And so I think it's a testament to the leadership. Yeah, the only reason, or one of the main reasons, I've been able to be really comfortable with this is because Devik has given us the space all to learn and grow in. Um, and so I'm really just thankful for that, and thankful for the opportunity, and thankful for just every one of the guests that I've had the pleasure to get to know. And I'm thinking back on my first episode with Rotar, that there were so many times I had to re-record that. It was a little shaky.
I was actually curious about that, and that was just a question that I had in my own mind was how did the podcast get started? Because I was not here at the very, very beginning. I've been here for months now, but I wasn't here for like the first couple episodes.
Well, and this may or may not be surprising to you. I wasn't either. My understanding is the various members of council would rotate hosting the podcast for, I believe, the first year or so. And then Michael kind of took it on for about 8 episodes. And then I took over. I think I've done about 12 or 13 I would have to count, but and Marcy's going to hopefully be in this for the long haul as well.
One thing that I've definitely found with this podcast especially is that having a host, a consistent host, with a very clear uh, voice and style is really helpful. And I think I think you've brought so much to the podcast just by being, Nate Turner.
It's interesting that you say style. I mean, I I had no clue how to do this. I just really focused on, you know, doing research beforehand, so I knew who I was talking to, and I knew what I wanted to ask, especially, as I got more comfortable doing this, and your colleague Edsy kind of started overseeing the podcast a little bit. I guess I really focused on listening to the guests because I believe that they all have a story, and it's about really it's twofold. It's about elevating them so that their story shines, but also thinking about the broader audience, particularly the people that are living with disabilities, and what questions would they want to know based on the guest's personal experiences. And so that philosophy always drove my approach. And I wanted to kind of be more conversational, but just kind of let the guests talk and say what they wanted while meeting them where they are. And it's not the easiest thing to do. And all the while, I'm keeping time, I'm minimizing noise distractions on my end, and every single time the landscape would up. It was just like, oh no, now. So I just hope the viewers learn something over the years and know that the podcast is a really unique way to connect with council and a safe place to share their stories. Because often we use those stories and our personal relationships as bases for a future episode.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's I think you nailed it on the head saying that you're trying to come at it from the perspective of the listener, right? And I think that's why you've got so many episodes that are so impactful and that have had, such a wide reach. I mean, not to get inside baseball, but the engagement with Ohio DD Talks has been great. And I really do think that you're a part of that. Are there any specific episodes or conversations or guests or just moments that kind of stand out to you as you reflect on this past year or so?
Over the past year, I think we made a concerted effort to really elevate the voices of people living with disabilities. And I had the fortune of knowing a lot of the people that we had, scheduled these interviews for. And so I knew their stories, and I knew where a lot of the value was in terms of, interviewing certain folks like, Renee Wood, Jennifer Gutierrez. Um, I didn't know Jackie and Justin Martin as well, but I certainly heard about them and their work, and I've been in virtual meetings. And James from the Ohio Advocacy Task Force, I know him really well. Um, so it's a really unique experience to interview with, people who are very good friends. And so I had the advantage of, sort of knowing their stories and how to highlight them. But I think Renee and Jennifer, even though they're two of the more recent podcasts I did, absolutely stand out. and also my work with James and the Ohio Advocacy Task Force, given that within Ohio's budget, there is language for people with developmental disabilities to have guaranteed spots on county boards in the budget draft. It's not signed into law yet, but I'm hoping, that's going to become the case in July, that it becomes law where every county board of developmental disabilities is required to have one person living with a developmental disability. I think that's going to be a significant, just massive change for the DD system. And a lot of my time in my new job is going to be focused on supporting our people and our county boards to execute on that provision in the law if it's signed.
Sure. Yeah, and we my firm, we do work with the task force as well. I mean, I've been in webinars, I've seen videos. I think there's really a really important work being done on that front. And the other thing that came to mind was that the episode with Renee is like, it's kind of legend, like, in the firm, because it was one of the best received, like,
Oh
highest
my.
impact. Like, we reference that episode as being like one of the best ones to come out of any of our
I'm so
podcasts.
glad to hear you say that. I mean, when I engage with the podcast, I typically engage with it on YouTube. So that is, and I watch every episode as it posts just because I want to see how the edit comes together, even though, like, when I do it, I'm super critical. It's like, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I say that? And why did my face do this? Or why did that sound happen there? So it's a self exercise, but I do it anyway. I don't know if that indicates something about my mental state, but I still do it. I mean, and quite frankly, I mean, I know what I feel in the moment. So to see it come together so polished, like I said at the beginning, is just an estimate to you and Enzi and Devika and
It means a lot to hear you say that. I genuinely think, but we just have a great team. The whole is a collaboration between us and the Ohio Council and Ohio DD Talks and the task force. I mean, the whole thing. It's a lot of great people, that are working really hard to do really great things. To that end, I wanted to ask, um, do you have any advice for Marcy and or any future hosts that may or may not be coming on board at some point in the near future? What advice would you give to them?
well, I don't know. That's an interesting question. It's a good question. I'm not an expert in any of this, so I don't know, if my advice is worth anything, let's say. But I would, I always tried to be true to myself, to be authentic, but also to have areas of consistency and to prepare for each of the episodes by looking up a little bit of information about the guests and about the area in which they had experience, so that I knew what questions to ask. um and I think, because it's really hard to manage, kind of in the back of your head, the timing, what the guest is saying, the points you want to make, you know, having a natural conversation so that it organically flows, asking appropriate follow up, and maybe abandoning the points you wanted to make because the follow up is so interesting. But it's really, I think, active listening is important. Preparation is important. Sort of knowing who you are and knowing what your strengths are and playing to those strengths. I think Marcy is she's so naturally charismatic that the conversation piece is going to come like that. And she won't have me in the way to constantly be bumping into her. So, I honestly, once, with a little bit of preparation, I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic.
I totally agree, and I'm really looking forward to working with Marcy. Speaking of keeping track of time, we're getting close to the end of our time here. I wanted to ask, what is your future looking like? Where can people find you going forward? What kind of projects are you working on? If you can talk about it, give us a rundown.
Yeah, I definitely can talk in broad strokes about what I'm going to be doing. So I'm at the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities, and I'm working on a project, as I said, called the Ohio Life Force Nexus. So I work pretty closely with Corey Ferguson and Stacey Collins folks. In the state are going to know who those folks are at the department. Um, and a lot of what I'm doing is outreach to the people we support. But I work remotely, so I leave for meetings in the community and things like that. So I can come in person to things, but I'm supporting our folks with information and resource development, and also collaboration with a wide variety of partners, including the Centers for Independent Living and entities like the Ohio Advocacy Task Force, the Ohio Homestead Task Force. Um, and I'm also working within the department to change some of the ways we communicate. I know that I'm working on a dedicated newsletter for the people we support, and also various groups or meeting places for the people we support to come together and connect with department leadership. I don't know if they would exactly be virtual fireside chats, but I can imagine, folks coming together to learn from the department about what it's working on. Maybe, there could be a specific employment, um, and there might also be groups in other areas, especially as we work together to support the county board inclusivity initiative that I referenced earlier with the budget.
I mean, hey man, it's been, an honor to have you here on the podcast and to work with you. It's a shame to see you go, but it sounds like you're taking your skills and you're taking them even higher up and making, even more great things happen. So I want to hop off here and kind of let you do your sign off and do your thing,
Well,
and give
and,
you.
and rumor has it I may also be podcasting in the near future as well. So people will, I'm not going away. I'm just supporting people in new ways. And, to be honest, it took a while for me to warm up to all of the changes that were happening. But I think, now that I'm getting settled and you have some direction with all of the things I'm creating, I know that we're going to be able to do fantastic things together in terms of the people that are actively doing the advocacy. I'll be able to support them in new and exciting ways.
That's awesome, man. And I'm looking forward to seeing all that. All right, man. Well, if you have any final thoughts or final sentiments,
I
feel
guess
free.
I I don't really have any final sentiments beyond just immense gratitude, to Devika, to all your team, to the listeners, to, the people living with disabilities that trust me enough to share their stories with me. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to, have this small space together where we can learn and grow and share experiences. That as I conclude every episode, I want to continue to encourage you all to share your stories, because peer support is one of the ways that we as people living with disabilities and the professionals that support us can help us to grow organically. So I never want us to lose sight of that fact. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for listening. And I hope you all have a great day. Marcy will see you at some point in the very near future. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.